MUS119 summer term, what is up? So I have compiled modules 2a and 2b together into one video entitled Rhythm and Meter. In this lecture, we're going to talk about what is rhythm, what is meter, how do the two coexist together in music, how do I understand these concepts. So, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was note values. Generally, the written note values are as follows. You have a whole note, which is this donut-looking thing that gets 4 beats, a half note, which gets 2 beats, a quarter note, which gets 1 beat, an eighth note, which gets half of a beat, and a 16th note, which gets a quarter of a beat. I want you to notice that the designations of eighth notes and quarter notes all fit into this quarter note being 1 beat, so you can fit 2 eighth notes into 1 quarter note. Our quarter note is kind of like our home base over here. You can see that. So you have 2 eighth notes that fit inside 1 quarter note, or 4 16th notes that fit inside 1 quarter note. This is what I would like to call a note tree, so that you're able to see all the different note values that you have all in one place. It's also very helpful because you can see that there's 2 half notes inside of 1 whole note, 4 quarter notes inside of a whole note. You could also see that 2 quarter notes fit inside of a half note. You could fit 8 16th notes inside of a half note, all of that stuff. So it's kind of nice that you're able to see that. And we can combine these different note values to create different rhythms. The number of notes in each measure is dependent on the time signature, which we'll go over later in this module, but it's important to remember these note values because they're going to be practiced in exercises 2A, 2B, and 2C, as well as throughout the rest of the semester. So, in written music, these are how we see notes on the staff. You can see that there's open note heads or closed note heads over here. These things are what we would call note heads over here. And depending on where the note head is located, depends how their stem or flag or beaming will be located on the staff. So look at the ascending quarter notes in the right part of example 2.1 over here that we have. And if we look over here, regardless of the clef, whatever note is located on the middle line of the staff or the third line, so right here, the stems can go up or down. So when the note head is located above the third line, anything past here, the stem is going to be down and to the left of the note. Notice that they're all like this. Note head, stem down. Whereas if it's all to the left of the middle note, that the stems are up and to the right of the note. So this is applicable to quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes, essentially anything but a whole note that has a stem. Over here, in example 2, you can see that you have an option to create a flag on a note, which is just a single 8th, 16th note, or 32nd note over here, just a singular note. So you have just what's called a flag, which is this part of it. Or you could beam them together. So this could either be notated like this or like this. And essentially, we group these notes together with what's called a beam so that we are able to better see it within the beat, whatever beat it is. If you don't do these very, very strong suggestions, then you get the wonky Christmas music stamps from Michaels that are not right at all. I don't know if you guys have seen that on TikTok, where it's like somebody tries to play the written stamp and it's like happy birthday or like Feliz Navidad, and like it's not the tune at all. So that's what you'll get if you don't do the right notation. So if we look, we have a beat. A beat is a steady and predictable duration between attacks. An attack is the first sound of a person playing an instrument, singing, or clapping their hands. Within our grouping of beats, there will be some that are accented and some that are not. Typically, the first beat in any measure is accented to signify the downbeat. The stressed or accented beats depend on the meter signature of the piece. And I wanted to listen to some right here. Oh, this is beautiful. It opened right up for me. It didn't do that before, so that makes me happy. Oh, and no ads. Let's go. Okay, so this is Dmitri Shostakovich's Waltz number 2, and you're going to hear how the first beat of this is very much so emphasized. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Listen to the bass. That's kind of like our accent on the first beat, and then you can hear the kind of response after. So that then you can listen. So you have the bass going boom, and then the other instruments going chick chick boom chick chick boom chick chick boom chick chick. So you can really hear the accent by the bass. So I'll let you listen for a little bit more. Cool. Then we have, I chose a piece that I also like. This is not classical at all. Just to show the stressed versus unstressed beats that we have.
Many extremists were trying to...
Okay. I did not approve these ads. However, yeah, so this piece you'll be able to kind of hear, like, usually the percussion or bass line will provide the accentation, I don't know if that's a word, the accenting of the beats. So you'll be able to hear that in this piece. And it's in a little bit of a different meter, so you'll be able to hear a different, the beats that they chose to accent being a little bit different. So before I intervene with a bunch of comments, I'll let you listen for a little bit.
Sometimes I really feel it up, and other times I really feel down. But keep up, keep a smile on your
Beats are accent.
You gotta know that you're enough, and ain't nobody really in your place. You just gotta,
That's right.
you gotta keep on pressing on your destination. You are a diamond, you've got that fire. You've got something special, you've got something.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different with like pop tunes and stuff. I don't know if you guys have seen the memes of don't let your friends clap on beats 1 and 3, but usually in a setting like this, like jazz or like pop stuff, you're not going to really want to have something on beat 1. However, if we keep listening, you're able to hear kind of like the harmonic structure of the piece, aka like the notes kind of take a precedence on beats 1 and 3 as opposed to being strongly accented by the bass voices. So let's keep on listening a little bit so that you can hear that, and then we'll move on.
You got something special inside.
Like, it's not really harsh, but like that really prominent chord come out on beat. Ba, do, ba, da, da. So, sorry, this is just me nerding out at this point. So let's go back to our slides, which are in here, and we're going to press done. Beautiful. So now we're moving on to time signatures and meter signatures. Time signature, these terms of time signature and meter signature are interchangeable. Time signatures tell us how many note values are in a particular measure or a particular bar. So the top number of our time signature tells us how many beats are in a measure, and our bottom number tells us what note value is our beat. So if the bottom number is a 2, the half note gets a beat. If the bottom number is a 4, the quarter note gets the beat. If the bottom note is an 8, the 8th note gets the beat, and if the bottom note is a 16, then the 16th note gets the beat. I found this meme online, and it's really funny because 17/16 is a very, very difficult time signature to play in, because you have to play 17 16th notes in each measure. Whereas over here, we're in common time, which is also known as 4/4 time. So you have a 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. You have 4 quarter notes in each measure, which is very happy, very common. Everybody loves 4/4 time because it's just easy to follow. So I wanted to look at some time signatures and guide them through with you. So we have these. We have a 3/4 at the beginning of this piece. We have a 2/4, and 4/4, and a common time. So as I just stated before, common time also is 4/4. And I wanted to just kind of like show you here a little bit more with time signatures. So if we look, let's start with this 3/4 guy. So our top number tells us how many beats are in each measure, and the bottom note tells us what note gets the beat. So we know, because there's a 4 on the bottom, we should have a quarter note being our beat, right? So we need to make sure that we have 3 quarter notes in each measure. So if you look here, you have 2 eighth notes, right? That's a quarter note. You have another quarter note here. You have another quarter note here. We know that 4 16th notes fit into a quarter note. So that's 1, 2, 3. Bum 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 ba da bum 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 ba da da. So if we're looking at that, what I'm snapping, or what I just saying, I know it's not all the right pitches and notes and whatever, but just so that you can see how the rhythm fits into the beat. So what I'm snapping is my quarter note pulse, right? 3, 1, 2, 3. Bum 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 ba da 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 ba da da. So that is our rhythm. This part that I was singing is all the rhythm. So essentially we're fitting different note values into our beat. And you can even see here the grouping of the beats that you have. Like, we know that this is 3/4 time, and you can see that there is an 8th note, or 2 eighth notes grouped together, rather than having 2 flagged 8th notes, right? You can see that they're beamed together to indicate, yes, this fits in the value of a quarter note. Same here with the beaming of these 16th notes. They show, yes, this fits in 1 quarter note. Usually the beaming and like the notation helps represent our time signature. So like here in this 3/4 time, you can see, yes, this all fits inside a quarter note. 2/4 is the same premise. My 2/4 example is kind of lame. It's just 2 quarter notes. Why? Because bottom number 4, we know a quarter note gets the beat, and we have 2 quarter notes in each measure. So if we continued on with this, you could have 4 eighth notes, you could have 8 16th notes, you could do a combination, you could do a eighth note, quarter note, eighth note. Essentially, you're just compiling whatever note values that you want to compose, or like to fit inside your time signature here. So like with 2/4, you have 2 quarter notes in each measure. So you need to make sure that whatever note values that you have, you need to fit inside whatever is in the time signature. So you need to have 2 quarter notes, 3 quarter notes, or in this example, the next one, you have 4 quarter notes. So this is really cool because you can see the beaming, right? 4/4. I'm getting ahead of myself. 4/4. Quarter note gets the beat, right? And you have 4 quarter notes in each measure. So let's map this out. You have an 8th note, or an 8th rest, an 8th note, right? That's 1 quarter note. Then you have another quarter note here, and then you have 2 blatantly written out quarter notes. And you can see here with the notation, you have these 2 eighth notes that are beamed together, and then you have this one that just has a flag indicating that it's a single 8th note being played after what is an 8th rest over here. So you can really see the grouping of the 4/4 time. And then same goes for this common time example. You're fitting 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see the beaming there as well. Let's move on. Now we have other examples. So when you have an 8 on the bottom of your time signature, common time signatures for this are 3/8, 6/8, 9/8, or 12/8 to have an 8 on the bottom. that we're going to be working with. You need to figure out how many eighth notes fit in each measure. So here we have 1, 2, 3. And we can see that because we have an 8 on the bottom, meaning our eighth note gets the beat. And we have a 3 on the top, meaning that there's going to be 3 eighth notes in each measure. And you can see that here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because 2 eighth notes fit inside a quarter note, and then you have an extra eighth note. 1, 2, and then rest. We'll talk about that in another unit. Cool. So 6/8 has 6 eighth notes in each measure. So if we're looking here, what we have 1, 2, 3. And this is a very common rhythm. That's found in 6/8 time. So we'll go over dotted rhythms and such, but essentially, this is your 6/8. You have 6 eighth notes in each measure. So for this 12/8 example, you're going to have 12 eighth notes, right? Because we're looking, we have an 8 in the bottom and we have 12 on the top. So that means that our eighth note gets the beat, and we're going to have 12 of them in each measure. So we didn't go over dotted notes yet, but if you have a dot added to a note, it is going to add half the value of that note to it. So if you have a half note, we know that a half note gets 2 beats, right? Well, what's half of 2? 1. So it's essentially like you holding out a half note and a quarter note together. So in a half note, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 eighth notes, right? In a quarter note, you have 2. So you have 6 eighth notes here, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the same premise applies. And notice the grouping is still in groups of 3 eighth notes, as much as possible, except for this dotted note, which we'll go over more of in the next module that you have. So yeah, that's that. I wanted to show you some funky ones that are not as common, that you really won't have to use in this class. But you have 7/4. So if we look at this, we have a 4 in the bottom. Quarter note gets the beat, right? And we're gonna have 7 of them in our measure. So you have 1 here, right? Notice the beaming. 2 dotted note. So if you have a quarter note, right? We know a dot adds half the value. We know a quarter note is 1 beat. What's half of 1? 1/2. So it's 1.5 beats long. So you have a quarter note here and here. So essentially you could think about it like a quarter note with an eighth note. That's a quarter note. 6, 7. So you fit 7 quarter notes in each measure, right? 7/8. You have 7 eighth notes in each measure. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is where kind of like that like stressed and accented beats come into play, because in different meter signatures like 7/8 or 7/4, you're gonna have different accents on the beats. You could have dot 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 dot. So I'm snapping the accent right now and singing, or I guess saying, the eighth note. So dot 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 is what's written. Whereas you could also switch it and go dot 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so it all just depends. But this is a similar situation if you had a meter like 5/4 or 5/8 as well. Dot 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 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, or 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. So it all depends. So I wanted to practice writing in some meter signatures. I wanted to ask you a question first before you do this, before you fill in any of these. I want you to look at the grouping of notes that we have. If they're grouped into groups that fit into a quarter note, chances are there's probably going to be a 4 on the bottom. If you have groupings of 3, like over here, you're probably going to have an 8 on the bottom, is my common piece of advice. So let's walk through some of this together. I want to start down here with this one. And over here, I see I have a quarter note, I have an eighth note, and 2/16 notes, which is a quarter note effectively. And if I were to go through this again, like in a different way, you could look at it. You have like essentially 4/16 notes here, and since they're all beamed together, they all fit into one quarter note. Also, I wanted to point out that yes, you have 3 notes beamed together here, but that does not mean that they are the same as 3/8 notes beamed together. That's a little bit different. So if we're looking over here, I would label this as 2/4 time. Why? Because your quarter note is the beat, everything's grouped into quarter notes, and you have 2 quarter notes in this measure. If we keep looking over here, let's see, we got 2/8 notes, which fits into a quarter note. We got 4/16 notes and a quarter note, right? What would you label this? Think about what note gets the beat and how many of that beat is in each measure. If you got 3/4, you are correct. Let's look at this one on the top. I'll let you solve this by yourself, but I want to look at this over here. So you got a weird grouping of 3 notes, right? So, okay, I'm thinking let's just stick with 8th notes, right? Because I know I'm probably going to have an 8 on the bottom because of that grouping of 3. Now let's look. We have a dot, or 2/16 notes, which is effectively 1/8 note. And then you have a dotted half note. Let's break down that dotted half note. You have a quarter note and a half. So you have 3/8 notes that fit into this. I'll go over this more in the next module, but you have 1, 2, 3, right? So if we're looking here at what I drew on the bottom, I have 8th notes, right? And I have 7 of them. What would you write for your time signature? If you wrote 7/8, you're correct. Look at this next one. You have a grouping of 3. How many 8th notes fit into one quarter note? 2. And then you have 3 over here, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you have 8th notes. What time signature would this be? If you answered 6/8, you are 100% correct. So I want you to try out the first and the last ones. So you can pause the video to do that. I also wanted to break down for you. You have a dotted half note, right? Let's see. That's essentially a half note with half the value added to it. So we know 2, half of the value is 1, right? So we know this is 3 quarter notes altogether. So now you have a more effective shot at this. So give it a try. Alright, so let's see. The first one, we have 3 quarter notes that fit into this dotted figure. And we have 1, 2, 3 quarter notes. So altogether you have 6 quarter notes, which equates to 6/4. Let's see over here. You have a quarter note, you have a quarter note, you have 4/16 notes, which is a quarter note, and 2/8 notes, which is a quarter note. So that's 4/4. Wonderful. Let's go to the next page. So this page is lines 2 and 3 of part 2 of exercise 2b. And effectively, you are going to write in the lines for each example. So let's break this down. 4/4 time, you're going to have 4 quarter notes in each measure. So to help yourself, you can draw in where each quarter note would be. Or you could just wing it, but if this is still new to you, I would draw in each quarter note. Oops. So we know that that dotted figure is a dotted quarter note, so it's a quarter note plus half a beat. Quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. Cool. So I'll give you a minute to pause and fill in the ledger lines for this. Alright, so let's see. So we know we need 4 quarter notes in each measure. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to put one bar line here. It's just one simple line. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that is our 4/4 measures. If I were to snap the beat and sing this rhythm, it would sound like this. Ta 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 ta. Sweet. So let's move on to this 9/8 example that we have. If it helps you, it would be nice to write in each beat. However, a common rhythm in 9/8 looks like this at the top of your page. So you know that fits into your 3/8 notes, right? This also fits into your dotted quarter note. So this equals this. They're all equal to each other. So if we're looking here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, right? And then you have 1, 2, 3. Then you have 1, 2, 3. Then you have another 3 right here. You got another 3 right here. Another 3. Another 3. So why don't you guys give this a shot? So we need 9/8 notes in each measure. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Line goes here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Boom. Notice how there's a double line at the end? That means that it's the end of the piece or whatever we're working on. You're just going to write single bar lines until it is the end, in which you would write a double bar line. Let us fill in some of the lines here. So this is kind of like the opposite. It gives you the measures and it gives you the time signature, but you are required to fill in the rest of the beats. So here you have a 2/4 measure, right? So you're gonna have 2 quarter notes in each measure. So you can think about it like that when you fill in the notes. And the bottom one that you have is a 3/4 bar. So you're gonna fit in enough to have 3 quarter notes in each measure. So why don't you give that a try with what we've learned about note values. And you can pause the video here to try that out. And I can give you some sample suggestions. But there's no like one set answer for this. So go ahead and give it a try. Alright, so let's see. Things that you could do. You could do a dotted quarter note over here because that's 3/8 notes and you have one here. You could also do a quarter and an eighth note. You could do 2/8 notes. You could do a quarter note over here if you wanted to. You could do another quarter note. You could do 4/16 notes if you really wanted to, which why don't we? You haven't really drawn any 16th notes. You could put a quarter note here, you could put 2/8 notes, essentially any rhythm note values that fill up to be a quarter note works. So then you're thinking over here, you have something that fills up the value of an eighth note, right? So you want to make sure that you write in another eighth note, a quarter note perhaps, and then you could put in another quarter note, or anything that equals a quarter note. So you could put 2/8 notes, you could put 4/16 notes, whatever you want. And the same would go for this 3/4 section. which you're submitting this for homework anyway, so I'll be able to see what you are up to. Alright, so this next part, 6/8 and 9/8. I've been trying to hide it from you because I think that it's kind of a hard thing to wrap your mind around, but I think it's getting to a spot where you kind of need to know. So, with 6/8 and 9/8 meters, everything is grouped into groupings of 3. So if you're looking here, you have this one, well, groupings of 3 eighth notes. So like this 9/8 section, you have 1, 2, 3 eighth notes here, right? Because you have a dotted quarter note. You have 1, 2, 3 eighth notes here because you have a dotted quarter note. So you need something else to fill the space of a dotted quarter note. When we're looking at something that's a 9/8, 6/8, 3/8, 12/8, we're looking for our dotted quarter note kind of as our beat. So when you see something that looks like this, they're dotted quarter notes. When you see a quarter note with an eighth note, you know that's one dotted quarter note, one dotted quarter note, one dotted quarter note, and that all fits in the same spot. Same with up here, one dotted quarter note. This figure all fits into a dotted quarter note. It's essentially you making your eighth note figure, dot, 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 3 eighth notes, lengthening the first one by shortening the second one, making up for the time. So you have that, and this, and this. It's a dotted quarter note. So essentially you're looking at this and you're like, that fits into a dotted quarter note. So 6/8 time has 2 dotted quarter notes in each measure. So you could have something like that. We know we're missing the dotted quarter note equivalent over here. Here we have a dotted quarter note, but we're missing another quarter note, right? So you could write in 2 eighth notes or a quarter note. You could write in a dotted quarter note here. Essentially, you're just trying to fill in to have 2 dotted quarter notes in each measure up here. For your 6/8 time, you'll have 2 dotted quarter notes. Whereas with 9/8, you'll have 3 dotted quarter notes. So over here, well, in each measure at least. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Here you have 6 eighth notes, but you need something to fill in the rest of the gap. You can put over here, put 1, 2, 3. You could put a dotted quarter note. You could put this dotted 8th, 16th, 8th figure. You could put a quarter note and an eighth note, whatever your heart desires. Then I'm looking over here, right? This next measure. I'm like, cool. I have a dotted quarter note equivalent right here. I have an eighth note. I'm gonna probably put a quarter note next to it, or at least 2 other eighth notes so that I can see it better, being a dotted quarter note, and then boom. So I want to see what else you're able to fill out from this, but essentially you're making sure that you either have 9 eighth notes or 6 eighth notes in each measure over here. All right. The next stuff that we have is duple versus triple meter, and this is not something that you're going to be evaluated on and that you have to do it. It's just something to make you a better musician and appreciator of music. So, most Western music is written with 2 beats, 4 beats, or 3 beats in each measure, depending on the top number of our time signature. Meters based on 2 beats in each measure are called duple meters. So this means the top number is written as a 2 for 8 will be a duple meter because it divides the beat into 2. Whereas if there's 3 beats in each measure, they're called triple meters. So the top number has a 3, 6, 9, or 12 because it divides into 3 beats. So if you would like to do the duple versus triple test, I will post a link online, but I'm not going to make you do it in this lecture. So, you can categorize a time signature by duple or triple and simple or compound. So we're going to do simple meters first. So in a simple meter, the beat is divided into 2 equal parts, or parts divisible by 2. So in this scenario, quarter notes usually represent the beat, which can be broken into 2 parts, which is eighth notes, 4 parts, or 16th notes, or various combinations of 8th and 16th notes, which you could see over here. You have your beat, which is in 3/4 time, right? We have 3 quarter notes in each measure, which is shown below. You have a combination of an eighth and 2/16 notes. Essentially, when I'm thinking of a simple meter, I'm thinking of, okay, I'm breaking down my into a quarter note, essentially. If you're looking here, the other rhythms in the following two measures display your beat being broken down into, or your rhythms being broken down into a quarter note beat below it. So that's a simple meter. Versus a compound meter, the beats are subdivided into 3 equal parts. So generally, this beat will be a dotted note. The most common beat in a compound meter is the dotted quarter note. Example, in 6/8 time, the dotted quarter note gets the beat, but there's no way for the composer to notate that dotted quarter note in the beat, so the bottom number of the time signature is an 8. So the composer essentially uses what is known as a subdivision of the beat as the bottom figure of the time signature. So I'm gonna write this out for you so that you can kind of see it a little bit. So 6/8 time, right? We know there's 6/8 notes. This top part is kind of our subdivision, meaning that we're dividing this dotted quarter note, which is our beat, into 3 equal parts, because 3/8 notes fit inside of a dotted quarter note. So in 6/8 time, we tend to put an accent usually on the first and fourth beats, or effectively the first and second beats. If you're talking about the macro beat of a dotted quarter note, those are our stronger beats in 6/8 time. So that would be a compound meter, because our beats are divided into 3 equal parts. So if you're looking, this beat of a dotted quarter note is divided into 3 equal parts. You can't divide a quarter note into 3 equal parts. You can only divide a quarter note into 2 equal parts, and 2/8 notes rather than 3/8 notes. So if we're looking at this compound meter example, you can see here what I was talking about earlier, that you have a dotted quarter note and you're subdividing it into 3 equal eighth notes. The same goes for 9/8 and 12/8, with you having this dotted quarter note beat, and effectively in these meter signatures, you'll have beats 1, 4, and 7 accented here, and then 1, 4, 7, and 10 accented in 12/8, essentially accenting these dotted quarter note beats. But you can see here that the beat is divided into 3, right? You can see your dotted quarter note here, and you have what is the equivalent of a quarter note and an eighth note. You have 3/8 notes as well over here. So essentially everything is kind of grouped together in a compound meter to represent the dotted quarter note, whereas in a simple meter like this 3/4, you're able to see, oh, I have groups of 2 here. My quarter note is being broken down into two pieces, essentially. So how do you tell the difference? Because right here you have 6/8 notes in each of these examples, right? So the first thing you need to do is figure out if your beat is divided into 2 or 3 parts. Well, actually figuring out what the beat is the more important part of the two, right? So you're looking and you have a quarter note, you have a quarter note here. Your quarter note is being divided into 2. You have a dotted quarter note, right? Your dotted quarter note is being divided into 3, and which you can see from this grouping here. They may have the same amount of eighth notes, but the way that they're grouped tells you what meter signature it is. So you know that this is 3/4 because you have 3 sets of 2 quarter notes, whereas in 6/8 you have 2 sets of 3 quarter notes. You could see the beat there. So that's that. So when we describe meters, they can be described as simple or compound first. So simple beat is divided into 2 equal parts, so essentially anything with a 4 on the bottom. And compound is divided into 3 equal parts. The beat is divided into 3 equal parts. So you could have simple or compound, which describes the division of beats in each measure. And then they can also be described as duple or triple. So duple meaning the top number is divisible by 2, or is 2, and triple, the top number of the meter signature is divisible by 3, or it is a 3. So this describes the top number of our time signature. So if we're looking here, and we wanted to practice, we're going to say simple or compound and duple or triple in that order. So if we're looking here, 3, 4 time. Well, I know that my beat, I'm going to have 3 quarter notes in each measure, right? So I know that this is simple because I have 3 quarter notes. And I'm going to say it's triple because I have a 3 on the top. I have 3, my number of beats in the measure is 3 or divisible by 3, right? So I know that that is a simple triple. If I'm looking over here, I got a 4 on the bottom, so I know that that's simple because my beat is clearly notated and divisible into 2 equal parts, or fits all into that quarter note, right? So I can say that, cool, I have a simple, and then triple or duple. Well, 4 is divisible by 2, so it's duple. The same thing goes for 6, 8. Is this simple or compound? Well, let's see. We have dotted notes. Generally, when there's dotted notes, you know that it's compound. Anything with an 8 in the bottom of the time signature is compound. So you have a compound, and over here, you have a 6, right? This is not my favorite to go over because you could say, oh, well, 6 divided by 2 is 3, or 6 divided by 3 is 2. But when you're looking at the division of the beats here, you have 2 beats, right? And because of these macro beats, it is a compound duple rather than a compound triple because you have literally 2 beats there. So with compound meters, you want to see how many dotted quarter notes that you actually have. Then over here for this 9, 8, this all fits into 3 dotted quarter notes. And in my mind, I'm like, there's an 8 on the bottom, I have a dotted quarter note, this has to be compound, right? And then I'm saying to myself, how many dotted quarter notes do I have? You have 3. So it's a compound triple meter. You can follow this lecture with Chapter 2 in the textbook. Exercises 2a, 2b, and 2c contain the content within this lecture. I hope that it was helpful. Please email me with any questions or clarifications that you need or have. Good luck with this, and I hope that you enjoy your day.